Welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from fresh perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 270. It's all about relationship. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host. I'm here today in 818 Studios with my producer.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey. As always, we want to be the first to welcome you to a brand new week. So glad to have you with us. And here we are coming up the end of August. And if the energy feels electric, it's because we record all out of order and everything. This is going to seem weird, but in a couple of weeks, you are going to hear episode 275, which we recorded live just 2 days ago.
I know.
So I'm feeling really electric about that. I just edited that episode this morning. Yeah. And I know, in universe, time is not linear, and so it's the same way. But if you're feeling good, positive energy from us out there, then that's why, because we're feeling really good about that live episode.
I'm telling you, Dave, you're right. And that was not only alive in me this morning when I went to get my coffee. I was running late to record because everybody at Lineage wanted to talk about what a success the recording was. And I thought it was super sweet because none of those people had ever heard the show before, so that was great.
Yeah, we were recording, and, I kind of, as a producer, I kind of stepped out and said, hey, this is what we're doing, and we're about to start recording, and, it's just kind of coffee shop chatter. Yeah. But then once it started, like the whole place, and not just our crew, because we had quite a few folks there who were there just to kind of attend
support.
the tape. Yeah, support the
free
taping
coffee.
live.
Free coffee.
But the whole other half of the shop was guests, just regular patrons of Lineage. And wow, you could hear a pin drop in there. You had everybody's rapt attention.
It was really sweet. Thank you. It was really sweet. Well, one of the guys that was hoping to come, he did not come, but his sister came. And I said, oh, was that your sister? He goes, yeah, long red hair. I said, oh, I loved her energy. He said, oh, yes, she really enjoyed it. She got home and texted me about how great it was and all that. And so I don't know, that touched my heart that people that had never heard of me or the show, which I can't even believe that's possible in Orlando, as many people as listened to the show and as long as I've been here, but it just goes to show, we all kind of exist in these little bubbles, It's like, this is my life and this is what I do. And if I don't know to search you on Spotify, or I don't know to search you on YouTube or iTunes, like it doesn't exist. Yeah. And for me, what was fun was just being out in the public and, meeting new people and having the baristas be lifted up as they, pulled shots and then we're making coffee. And, the woman that works there had purple hair this morning was like on it. She was all talking. She said, I thought that was a success. And
yeah, it went so well. And that episode will be airing on September 25th. So be on the lookout for that. But I just want to acknowledge it, kind of in real time, because we're really, I'm really kind of jazzed about how well it went. And, are we going to edit out all of the sounds? And, do we want to? No, it's happening live. There was a moment where a scooter gang went by.
I'll remember that. I was like, what are those bikes?
50 scooters went by. And it kind of sounded like a motorcycle gang. But we're going to leave it in there. It's authentic. This is called, the Authentic Spiritual Journey. And that's as about as authentic as you can get.
Yeah, it's called Living Life in a City. Exactly.
Right.
Well, several of my clients I work with are in New York. And interestingly, we just learned that New York was number 2 on our, how would I say that? On our number of listeners, the top percentage was, Orlando, Central Florida. Number 2 was New York. But anyway, several of my clients are in New York that I work with one-on-one, my coaching clients. And often in a call, I'll hear a siren or and I know you deal with that with Monique.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes recording, and it's pretty funny. It's called, Life in the Big City. That's just where we're at. So I kind of liked it. Like I say, I think that area in Orlando is has a lot of homeless. It has a lot of need
Mm.
where we were, and I've helped a lot of individuals around that area at various times in my time here. So I like that we were bringing a little light and a little joy and some spiritual nourishment to that area because, it's felt energetically. And I think sometimes we don't really realize how just our energy being somewhere impacts the place.
Yeah.
So that touched me to be able to do. And lineage, I should say, has been so generous with me and with us on the show. And I thought they donated the space and gave us coffee as, a way to celebrate with us. And I think that was a beautiful gesture for just somebody that comes in and has coffee there.
Yeah, yeah, well, it shows a real connection, and it's
Yeah.
relationship. You didn't just go pound the pavement looking for somebody to sponsor your show. You're like, I love this place. I'm here all the time. You have
Hmm.
relationship with the people behind the counter, and you're like, hey, this is a thing because this place is special to me. I would like to have this special thing
Yeah.
in your space, and it was a no-brainer. Jordan was great. He helped us out the whole time.
Oh, the manager. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Well,
Yep.
and his girlfriend is an actress. They're getting ready to move to Georgia. Interestingly, in my home state now, there's a lot of filming of, and
Oh,
in
yeah.
right, and in the town where most of my family lives, there's a lot of older homes. So I just saw a movie the other day that was filmed across the street from my sister. I was
Yeah,
like, oh, there's that house.
Yeah, Georgia has a huge filmmaking
Yeah.
industry. Well,
Yes.
let's give a shout out to folks. You mentioned New York, but I want to give a shout out to the
Yeah.
folks listening to us from Frankfurt, Germany. From Frankfurt.
Ah, wie geht's?
Yes, wie geht es? Alles klar?
Wie geht es Ihnen?
Wie geht? Yep.
Was ist das? I remember when I took German, and the teacher always go, "Was ist das?" Das ist Kugelschreiber.
A ballpoint pen. Yep.
Or it could be called a Kuli. Okay.
Yeah.
Was ist das? Das ist Finster.
Yep. Yep, that's the window. Yeah, I remember, obviously we used to teach in Germany in the summers and have a huge fondness for Germany. Of course,
German
my family,
beer.
yeah, the German beer, the German last
Right.
name, and all of that. And so love Germany. And I remember when we did a Honor Your Heritage.
Yes. Oh, yes, at
uh,
CCU
at
years ago.
CCU.
Mhm.
Yep. And I wore a Deutschland shirt, Either
Yes.
that or show up in Lederhosen, I guess, but which I think Don did.
Yes.
But yeah, I had a Deutschland shirt, and yeah, love Germany. So hello and welcome to all
Yes.
of our friends listening to us in Frankfurt.
Yes, thank you, friends in Frankfurt. And, let's stay in touch. I'm really planning in 2024 to travel more, and I would love to travel worldwide. If anybody wants to help me plan an event outside, across the pond, as they say, I would love to be in Europe and do a European tour in the next couple of years. So my speaking is taking me out in the real world, and I love it. So thank you, Frankfurt, and blessings on your journey. And thank you for listening. That's great. And Dave, I actually want to change the title today to It's All About the Relationship.
It's all about the relationship.
If we need a moment, that's fine.
Nope, I can do that in real time.
It's all about the relationship, friends. Yes. And Dave, tell me again what show this is. Is this 270?
270, right? Yeah, I know. I was talking about the thing that we recorded 2 days ago. That's
It's
not
275
for 5 weeks. And
right. I was like, my head hurts this morning thinking about what we're recording.
Yeah, this is episode 270.
Well, I do want to do the show we had talked about later, but because it's so up for me right now, and we were basically talking about it. What you were saying, Dave, is so important. Is I had an established relationship with Lineage, and interestingly, I recently also found out that the owner trains at the same jiu-jitsu gym that I do, and so we have a lot in common. He is a man of faith also. So it's interesting to me that how energy works. And for years, I've had a phrase, and I borrowed it from a dear friend named Jill. Her name is Jill Rogers. And when I first met her, though, she was Jill Friedel. And she would say to me, it's all about the relationship. It's all about the relationship. And I said, well, what does that mean? It's all about the relationship. And I realized that so much of my life, my successes, my work, my tough times, what got me through was my relationships, whether it was friends, my relationship with a good therapist, my relationship with myself. And so, if this were a Sunday morning talk, I would say it's about relationship to God, self, and others. Those would be my 3 points, because my relationship with God really dictates all of my other relationships and how I relate with those people. But I was recently talking to a friend, and I was talking about some work opportunities, and somebody said, well, why don't you go to this person? Why don't you go to that person? I even got a referral for someone who does TED Talks. And, people have told me for years I should do a TED Talk. And I said, really, every opportunity I've had to speak has really been just somebody I've known. I said, so I have what you call relationship capital. I know people. My girlfriend recently was looking for jet skis, and it was interesting. We were looking online, and every town we looked in, I said, oh yeah, I know somebody there. Oh yeah, I know somebody there. Oh yeah, I know somebody there. She was like, do you know somebody in literally every state? I said, yeah, pretty much. And any of those people I could call right now and say, I'm going to be in town, and they would say, would you like to stay with us? I said, so I have what you call relationship capital, which is worth more than money to me, way more, because these are people I love. They're people I've invested in those relationships, and they still bless me today. Having said that, it's all about the relationship, starting with God for me. Starting with God. So this issue has been so up for me because I was recently talking about at church, and I said, if you're a parent, and you have kids, what do kids need? And Dr. Donna talks about this on her podcast all the time. They need time, attention, and energy. That's what kids need. Time, attention, and energy. And if your kid gets time, attention, and energy, they're going to be healthy, because that's what's needed for any healthy relationship. Time, attention, and energy. And as a kid is growing and developing, they need time, attention, and energy to know their real self, to know their authentic self, to know that they're worthy, all those things. But I said, but every relationship needs time, attention, and energy. And I think sometimes what we do with our spiritual life, and of course, that's my focus on this particular show is, that our focus is on the spiritual. And if you don't give your spiritual life time, attention, and energy, you're not going to be successful in that area spiritually. You're never going to be. It's not possible. You have to give time, attention, and energy to any relationship that you want to work. Yep, time, attention, and energy. So, so important. Years ago when I was I had found my way to the 12-step program through a sibling that got sober. So I grew up there was a lot of addiction in my household, and my oldest brother found Alcoholics Anonymous when I was a kid. I was the youngest of so many kids that by the time he was getting sober, I was only like, 9 or 10 years old. And I learned about the 12 steps then. And then later in my 20s, really started attending Al-Anon. And I heard this phrase that has really stayed with me. And the phrase is this: if you treat the program like a drop in your life, like a drop-in program, that's what it becomes, a drop in your life. In other words, you're never going to heal and quote unquote recover. I'm using air quotes, recover. You're never going to recover if you don't commit and give your time, attention, and energy to this part of your life and program. Right? So as I was new in Al-Anon, I said, I get it. I've got to get to a meeting, a minimum right now of twice a week, because I'm trying to change thoughts and habits about who I am in the world. So this is how I was changing my relationship, both with God and myself. It took time, attention, and energy. Right? So everything in your life right now is a result of your relationship with the divine, or lack thereof. This is my belief. I've seen it proven over and over and over again. People that are in depression, people that are feeling anxious, people that are feeling disconnected, when I ask them to tell me about their spiritual life, there is no consistent practice. There's no developed habit. It's like, well, I go to church on Sunday, or I go to church twice a month, or I listen to you every few weeks, or, I've had people hang their entire spiritual life on what I say, rather than also doing the work the other days of the week, right? So it's all about the relationship, friends. What is your relationship with God? And whatever that relationship is, that's going to start to play itself out with yourself and with others, including self-worth, including what you believe you're capable of, all these things. It's amazing the importance of your relationship with the divine. I simply cannot overstate how important it is to have some kind of consistent relationship with the divine. It changes everything. While you think about that, I'm going to have a sip of coffee from Lineage. Interestingly, as I'm saying that, in the Lineage story, I've never really talked about this, but the guys who started Lineage, they had this memory of being in the car with their dad and smelling his coffee cup. I mean, it is called Lineage, right? And it was about making a good coffee that anybody could drink, but it was touched back into his relationship with his father that started the whole company. All about the relationship. And Dave, I know your relationship with your dad was profound. Mine was too. My dad was like primary nurturer, really.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned like fathers and coffee, as I can firmly remember my dad and his coffee, and I still have the mug that he used that when he was a Marine. It's called, and it says Top Croft on it, and I have it right downstairs, and every time I use it, I remember him.
Oh, I have my dad's mug also. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was the memory of him every single morning drinking coffee out of this certain mug. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, the things that tie us in to a relationship. As I'm thinking of my dad right now, it's really interesting because when I was very young, my dad taught me about reincarnation. And I can tell you, friends in Georgia, nobody ever talked about reincarnation.
We're not a popular subject, was it?
And interestingly, I found out after he passed, talk about relationship. This is really crazy. I'm going to tell you guys this story. So I'm telling you now about my dad, right? And about reincarnation. And my dad passed, when I was 18. I was a freshman in college and about to go into my sophomore year, I guess. And my dad passed completely unexpectedly. So that's pretty young to lose your dad. And it was such a shock for me. So my dad and I were really close. And even when he passed, by the time I got back to school, he had sent me something, and got it with his handwriting. I mean, it was just so profound that he had sent me all of this stuff. Well, years go by, and I am in Tennessee visiting a dear minister friend. Again, all about the relationship. Me and this minister friend, it's Reverend John McLean. He's been on the show. And I remember the first day of school when we connected, because he said to me, John said, I'm not going to be friends with all these people. He said, I'm probably going to have one friend, and I pick you. I said, okay. I was thinking, do I have any choice in this? I know. I fell in love with him right away, and we had met at, doing classes. Anyway, I promise I'm going to tie these two men in together. Just stay with me. So anyway, John and I have remained connected, for over 20 years. We met in the late 90s, and we often say we would not have survived school, without each other. And John has a history in television and the arts. He's so interesting. I just find him endlessly interesting and an incredible friend. So anyway, I was going to be speaking in Nashville, and John and I love to adventure together and travel. And he was going to show me something in the city, and he goes, "Oh, I'm supposed to take you here right now." And I go, "Okay." And there was this church in the middle of Nashville, and he said, it's really strange. It's like Egyptian on the inside. It's like Presbyterian, but it's Egyptian on the inside. And I said, well, that's really interesting. So we walk in there, and I immediately go up to the pulpit, and he takes my picture in there. And he goes, I want to show you back here. This is all the former ministers. And I walked in, and he goes, RCA, who is this man right here? I said, well, his last name's Anderson, isn't it? He goes, he looks just like you. And I said, he does. It turns out on my dad's side, like my great uncle or something like that, was a minister there. And not only was he a minister there, he was all about diversity, helping the homeless, like all the things that I've done in my ministry. And I realized in reading that my dad probably learned about reincarnation from this man because of the connection that this church had to some of the ancient teachings. Now, for me, that was a little love note from the universe about how relationship that uncle would have taught my dad, and my dad taught me, which prepared me for my journey years later. No one else in Georgia ever in my life mentioned reincarnation. No one. And I got the gift of relationship in the midst of my beautiful friendship with John, that I felt like my dad and my family, my lineage was talking to me like through the centuries. It's amazing. So I do have, by the way, a book of history about that and everything. And I have since been able to confirm that that is the case. Shortly after that, a cousin that I never talked to sent me the family Bible. And in that family Bible was a handwritten family tree. So I could confirm all that. All of those things, friends, are all about the relationship, but it all stems from my relationship with God. If I wouldn't have followed my path, I never would have met John McLean. Never. So I'm just amazed at how the universe works on our behalf when we put God first. So it's really relationship with God, relationship with self, relationship with others. That's how it works. But without giving that time, attention, and energy to the divine, all of our other relationships suffer. Because we just try to support without knowing why we're supporting. If we just try to love without knowing there's divine, unending love, is going to be limited. The way we love is going to be limited. So just think about now in your life, as I'm thinking about in mine, is there a way in which I need to let that divine love move in and through a little bit differently than I have been recently? One of the affirmations I'm saying now in my personal journey is, I love God, self, and others with ease and grace. I love God, self, and others with ease and grace. And I love that phrase, love God, self, and others with ease and grace. In other words, all is well. I don't have to have all these expectations of other people. I just keep grounding myself in the divine. And then I'm amazed how God sends me relationships, how God sends me the right person at the right time to support my journey, and I can support theirs. I'll give you an example. Years ago, when I was at CCU, first off, I met a man named Robert Sullivan. And Robert was an incredible gentleman. He had volunteered some at the church. I ended up putting him on staff. And shortly after that, met another man named Robert White. And interestingly, Robert White was white and Robert Sullivan was black. So I often called him Robert White and Robert Black, just as a joke. And we all had fun with that. But I really invested in both of those relationships. As a minister, they gave so much to the ministry that I just naturally invested time with people that gave a lot, to the church. And interestingly, in the last couple of years, even though I haven't been at the church for a long time, one of the Roberts and I rekindled our relationship. And it's been such a gift because we're able to help the other Robert with some things he really needs help with. And they're both in their 80s. And I feel honored to be able to be connected with them and serve them. And they still support me in my ministry. It's something I've never, of course, once asked for. And I think that God just knows what we need when we need it, when we're putting God first. And I didn't know I needed the Roberts in my life again, but God knew. And the fun that I have had with one of the Roberts, working on my home, he's in his 80s, was a master electrician, can build and do anything. And I'm learning for the very first time how to do electrical work. So even though we worked on our home, and I basically grew up on a construction site. I was always scared of electrical. And he goes, "Oh, you don't need to be scared of that. Let me show you how to do it." So I recently have been working on a remodel of one of my bathrooms that I'm doing myself, that he's kind of coaching me along. So it's been a fun experience. So on my days off, you find me with the 80-year-old Roberts, both of the Roberts in one form or another, either me helping them or them helping me. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful rekindling of a relationship. And I'm honored to be able to support them on their journeys. So, why is this important? Well, it's important because when you put God at the center of your life, it's like the needs that you have are provided for in a way that I could not have imagined. Like, I couldn't have said, "Oh, I need, 80-something-year-old Robert to be in my life right now." But because I'm putting God first, because I'm trusting God in my relationships, then the people I need at just the right time come into my life, and then I get to support them in whatever need they have. So it's a beautiful, like, symbiotic sharing of knowledge. We talk about spiritual things. Often we are thinking about the same thing. Like, recently I said to Robert, "Oh, I wanted to talk to you about, what do you know about micro expressions?" And his eyes lit up. He said, "That was on my list to talk to you about today." Now, nobody even I talk to, half the people I know don't even know what micro expressions are. But this was on his mind to connect with. So it's like another little love note from the universe. Look, this is somebody you're supposed to be with right here, right now. And because the consciousness you're in is the same. So it's all about the relationship, friends. Relationship with God, relationship with self, relationship with others. I've talked a lot about relationship with God today because when that is the center, everything else works better. It's just that simple. You're not hitting so many roadblocks because you're seeking to be in the flow, realizing that you're both activating the flow, also realizing resisting the flow is futile, right? Is that a word? Futile, whatever. You get what I mean? It's resisting the flow, you're always going to lose. So when God is first, learning to flow, learning to activate the flow of good in your life becomes second nature. And life is easier. You are more at peace. So I want you to think about, and I know you already are, but it's the ministry in me. I can't help it. For all of us to be thinking about, all right, what is happening in my life right now, and where's my relationship with God? Where's my relationship with the divine? Like, do I only reach out to God when there's, a problem? I say, God, get me through this, and I promise I'll do this, 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 and this. The foxhole God, or am I really on a daily basis, moment by moment basis, seeking to be connected, seeking to do the higher will, seeking to live from my highest self? And I know if you're listening to this show, it's about your highest self. I know you're seeking to live a spiritual life, to be on purpose, to, live a life of joy and peace and service. And there's always room for improvement on that spiritual connection. Recently, I had realized that in my morning spiritual practice, that my meditation had kind of gotten truncated, like each day was a little bit shorter. And I thought, that's not good. So as I re-upped my meditation again, it was like, I forgot how good this feels to every single day take time not only to journal and set my intentions, but to simply be quiet and let everything calm. And then my days, my nights, my work, my workouts, everything tends to flow better. My relationship with my son. So it's God first, then self, then others. It's all about the relationship, friends. And my hope for you is that you will nurture this relationship with the divine in you, whatever your spiritual path, knowing that as you do that, it calls you into your higher self, into the higher way of being and living. And of course, this is our hope for you, and this is our goal. We want to see the world grow, prosper, and evolve through the practice of spiritual principles. And we thank you for being a part of our show. So thank you for listening, my friend. And as always, we're so grateful for your financial support. Those of you who've given recently, we thank you because it keeps us on the air, keeps us paying those bills. And we are so grateful. We are so blessed to be able to support your journey. So blessings on the journey, dear friends. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2023, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the Soulworks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.